much. And first, let me thank the very esteemed organizer of this conference, Pavel, for being such a gracious host to all of us from around the world. And we must really thank the Russian people for producing such a man as he, and for the warm hospitality given to us in this city. And it's good for us to note at this conference that this city of Moscow is the greatest single concentration of European mankind in the entire world.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And it would be improper for me to begin this talk without speaking about the greatness of the Russian people. I have many friends, obviously, who are Germans, and the Germans like to speak of themselves often as the bulwark to the east. But the truth is that for every battle the Germans have fought in terms of the problems with the Far East, or the non-European part of the world, the Russians have fought 100 battles in defense of European mankind. And we must always think about the fact that the Russians have been the great bulwark over the ages from the East. And all European mankind owes a debt of thanks, because without that bulwark and without that tremendous barrier that the Russians threw up over the centuries, over the years, Europe may well have been overrun permanently. There has been certain incursions from the East, but the Russians were able to weaken the invaders. Also, I want to mention that I think as I travel the world, in many ways I see the Russian nation as the nation that is right now representing European mankind better than any other. Not perfectly, but better than any other. It's the only nation that's truly standing up to a degree against the New World Order, against globalism, against some of the machinations of those who would really destroy European mankind. Very few leaders, for all his faults, very few leaders would talk about the need to increase the birth rate among the Russian people, as your president has recently done. And I hope, and I send my hopes to your president and his successors who will come, that they will resist the non-Russian powers of nihilism and deracination, and that the traditional anti-Russian alien power that's always threatened Mother Russia, that this will be kept at bay. I think and I hope that Russia will be a leader for the entire world, not just for the great Russian people. And our prayers are sincere that your president will act as a true son of his people who honors his mothers and fathers. We send him our respect and many of our hopes. I also want to say thank you to all the delegates that are here.
Indeed.
And because you indeed represent the courage of your own respective nations, the honor. Many of you have faced possible jail time and persecution by the government. For instance, my friend Jan, so many of us have faced this kind of problem, and you are leaders. And I must begin this talk by saying as well that almost every nation represented here has fought one another in history. We have all had terrible wars and terrible conflicts, and I think the fact that we're all here together in the celebration of our own heritage and our own rights and our own tradition, that we're all here together is symbolic of the fact that never again can we allow the white race to go to war with one another. Everybody understands. Our people have scaled the highest mountains. They've plumbed the depths of the oceans. They've crossed great voids of space. Our people have unlocked the secret of the genome. Our medicine has saved hundreds of millions of people from innumerable perils of nature and disease. Our people have carved sculpture and brushed paintings as beautiful as any scene found in the natural world. We've written words that evoke the deepest of emotions, the greatest inspiration. Our technology has created a new world, and we've left our footprints on that silver orb in the sky, at which man has gazed up at for millennia with awe and wonder. Yet simultaneous to this incredible fountain of achievements for our people, we have seen our people driven to the brink of non-existence. We have seen them driven to fratricide since 1914, and we are now only 8 years shy of 100 years of intermittent warfare that has now turned into terrifying proportions by technology. And it's even more scary that this technology is now in the hands, often under the control of many non-Europeans. Ancient foes who were only minor thorns in our feet centuries ago, but who now plant and nurture malignant tumors in the innermost and most sacred chambers of both heart and brain. There is a shadow lengthening across European and American continents. It represents the destruction of all that we love, the eradication from the earth of a people that represent the epitome of beauty to each of us, a folk whose magnificent history and works of art, culture, science stir wonder in our hearts and inspiration in our souls. That specter represents degeneration, decay, and destruction of our freedom, and ultimately even extinction of our genes. That's something that is aptly called genocide. For our people, the people of Athenia and Rome, of Russia and Italy, Spain and Norway, France and England, and North America, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and so many other countries, we are now hurtling toward the precipice of genocide, a precipice that leads to the abyss below. Today, every nation of European descent faces a crisis not only of identity, but of even existence. Our birth rates are averaging 1.2 per household. Translated, that means we're liquidating more than 40% of our population with each generation. It's the greatest worldwide genocide in our history, even exceeding the plagues and invasions of the Middle Ages. Even the Black Plague worked its way through each nation for one generation and subsided. For in the face of the ancient pathogen of the Black Plague, our people worked up an immunity. In this case, the government and the media of the so-called West have worked overtime to suppress our natural immune system, our love of our heritage and nations. And they work to imprison, kill, and suppress in every way possible what I would call, in an analogy, the white blood cells that have struggled heroically against the invaders, against the infection. The current pathogens have now clearly worked their destructiveness through one generation, but they're not subsiding. They're only gaining momentum with time. The birth rate of our people is only 1.2 worldwide. What does that mean in real terms? It means that for every 100 European American men, women, and children, men and women, that they will give birth to fewer than 63 children. The next generation will bequeath fewer than 39 children. The next generation less than 25. The next fewer than 15. And in only the fifth generation, that original 100 will be less than 10. In other words, in the long existence of our people, stretching back for tens of thousands of years and thousands of generations, it will take only 5 short generations, an historical blink of the eye, to wipe out 90% of our population from the face of the earth. There are many reasons for the low birth rate. Probably the most dynamic factor is the alien media emanating primarily from Hollywood and New York that promotes a soulless, materialistic consumerism and solipsism, a degeneracy that attacks our deepest perception of morality and decency. And it leads to rates of disease that in turn lead to infection and sterility among men and women. Even homosexual self-destruction and non-reproduction. Hollywood's Brokeback Mountain, for instance, was not only an attack on the icon of my country's most heroic and masculine image, the American cowboy. It was a message that attacked all of our values and standards wherever it played to audiences of European descent. Every homosexual couple, whether male or female, is another couple of Europeans whose genes are extinguished forever. Radical feminism, also driven to prominence by its non-European progenitors such as Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem, as well as non-European media that I mentioned earlier, has driven too many beautiful and brilliant women, as I see some here today, from giving those wonderfully expressed genes new life and new beauty. We must not forget the political sources of this low birth rate. The fact that so many of our people cannot afford to have children, while they are forced to subsidize a growing non-European minority at home, and even the massive growing non-white majority really, around the world. As our population implodes, that of the third world explodes. And that mass is surging, pressing at our borders, pouring over them like the endless ocean that pours over the rails of a sinking, floundering ship. And as our ships of state sink lower, the rush of the sea comes faster and faster. And my friends, there's an ancient and distinct supremacist group who supports and boasts of its non-European origin. And it's behind our walls of our white kingdoms, and they deceitfully and treacherously open the gates to our cities and our lands to the invaders. They have long since done such. They did it once before in terms of the Muslim invasions, both in Spain and in Constantinople. More on aspects of immigration in a minute, but as we discuss the immediate disasters wrought by mass immigration, we must never forget that there's no immigration problem in the West without the subversion of our societies. The subversion of our societies. When we were healthy at home, there was no prescient immigration threat. Routing out this alien force within our societies is our first task. For just one of these subverters in the counselors of government are in the broadcasting booths of the mass media, they do more damage and are more dangerous to us than a million of the ragged barbarians pounding and tearing at our gates. They have, these non-Europeans, through a hypocritical team effort, deceitfully gained control of our major communication media and mesmerized many of our people into believing the extinction of our people will be a good thing. That it's not the greatest human catastrophe of all time, but somehow it will be a blessing on the earth. And that it somehow is noble for us to commit a racial suicide. Ironically, the same people who tell us the extinction of European mankind is good are the same ones who tell us that the greatest crime of all time was the alleged attempt in World War II of the Germans to drive the Jews to extinction. Yet somehow our demise is not considered a crime of immense proportions. This greatest of all human catastrophes is hardly even mentioned by the press or our politicians.